Hello, everybody. Lori here from Flowers After Hours. And I have been asked a lot of questions from brides. And so I'm going to get right into it. I'm going to do a podcast every single week. I'm going to go on live multiple times so I can answer your questions. I have a Q&A. If you have anything you want to say, by all means, send me a message, leave it in the comments below. I'll get back to you. And if I don't get back to you during this podcast, I will get back to you afterwards. No worries at all. So, hi, I'm Lori, and I've been in the flower industry for over 35 years. 14 years old, I stepped into a flower shop, and at 51, I'm still at it. And so, you could say that I've been doing it a really long time, and I love what I do. So, I'm going to be sharing tonight some just some information about weddings and themes and flowers that I think that any bride out there who's trying to plan her wedding can look into using it as a starting point for what they may try to do for their special day. So I think about whether like your theme. If you think about your theme and whether you're going for like a romantic theme, you're going for a minimalistic, classy theme, you need to take some time to think about all the elements from the dress to the tables to the venue to the flowers. So when I think about talking to my brides, I think about, okay, I need to get out of them what their theme looks like and what that vision is in their head because I haven't quite figured out how to mind read yet. So bear with me. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why flowers matter because I think that so often um, they'll be left to the end and they'll be like, oh well, I only want to spend $300 or $500, and that's not a realistic budget for most real brides' minds and what they're thinking. Maybe a wedding bouquet, but other than that, you're done. Yes, out there you can get some really inexpensive silk flowers or maybe make DIY something with a bouquet of roses. But at the end of the day, true wedding floristry, true design style where you have your tables, you have your bridesmaids, you have your maybe a headdress, you have all of the bouquets for the boutonnieres and the corsages and all the elements on the pews, or if you're in a tent, the beautiful luxurious flowers that go with everything. Um, it really lends itself to, you really need to think about what's a priority. So another podcast, I'm going to talk about pricing. This podcast, we're going to talk about the theme first because having that down, it's truly important, especially with talking to your wedding florist. You want to walk in there or you want to be on that Zoom call. I do most of mine via Zoom. And so the bride can really tell the story. The floral artist gets the vision and then creates that vision exactly the way it really should look. So let's talk. Why is it important? Okay. Yes, it's the theme. It sets the tone. Okay. It actually adds emotion. I know that sounds crazy. I know you're like, "What?" But it does. It adds emotion. And the thing is, a rose, a beautiful open rose, luxurious open rose, compared to a bird of paradise, totally different feeling, totally different emotion. And I'm gonna say that the thing is that flowers are unforgettable and they really do hold a memory. And I'm going to tell you a story. I told this same story kind of on my Facebook page. And It was about sunflowers. And this man called me up and he wanted sunflowers in silk for an anniversary. And you're like, but we're talking about wedding flowers here. Why are we talking about anniversary? But bear with me for a sec. So 20 years ago, she carried sunflowers in the wedding. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful. And so the sunflowers that she carried, he wanted me to recreate them for her and in silk so she could keep them forever and ever, and it would remind her of that day. And I'm telling you, like, literally, like, that's what I'm talking about. That's the unforgettable feeling that your wedding day is going to bring. And so if he remembered that sunflowers were what she carried 20 years ago and he wanted to recreate that, how amazing is that? Right? So what you do today is going to be something that people will remember for a really long time. So I just want you to think about that when you're thinking about your budget and thinking about flowers wherever you live in the country, so you can talk to your wedding florist, get that aesthetic down so they can bring that vision to life. And I know we're not talking about budget, but when you talk about budget, that will actually, believe it or not, play a role because then your wedding florist can say to you, okay, this is what you can get for that, and your theme, and where it possibly will matter more to have these elements come out and play. And I know I'm being a little cryptic there, but it all depends on your theme. So, speaking of theme, let's move on. Let's move on to something really important, which is the number one thing is what theme are you going to do? And I'm going to walk through a series of themes and I'm going to share with you. So have a pen and paper ready so you can write down the ideas that I give you. So when you talk, again, you might be all over the world, or you might decide, you're going to have me make some silk flowers for you or dried flowers and ship them wherever you are in the world. You have to know what flowers to talk about. And you might not know flowers. You're like, I only know what a rose is, or I only know what a carnation is. Well, you can look them up afterwards. But I'm going to tie a theme to flowers. So if one of the themes stand out to you, I want you to uh write down what I'm talking about so you can sort of take and pull that with you when you go and talk to somebody about them. So, with that being said, let's start. All right. Number one, the number one theme I think that never is going to go away. 20 years from now, I could say the same thing. Never going to go away is timeless. Okay. Classic, elegant, and timeless. Flowers that stand the test of time, bouquets that a bride 20 years from now will still carry a similar style than 20 years in the past. There might be a little bit of shift, but in reality, it is a classic, elegant wedding. What does that mean? It means roses in whites and ivories and creams. This bouquet would be for classic and timeless, probably all white or maybe neutral shades to the left and the right of white, right? You a little bit of cream, a little bit of tan, a little bit, but mostly white. Really, and I mean, flowers aren't true white unless they're silk. So, if you say to me, Lori, I want a timeless, elegant, classic wedding. I'm going to immediately in my mind think roses. I'm going to think maybe peonies, but only within reason, season, um, because peonies you can't always get. Um, I may think calla lily, except they're also used in a minimalistic, modern, sleek design. But we'll talk about that later. Orchids, they've been around for a long time and they've been used for a long time. Lily of the Valley and gardenia. I'm going to pair them together. Granted, people used to carry just lily of the valley. Again, not always available. So you have to talk to your wedding florist and understand. Maybe you want to go with silk. And then, I do both. I do silk and fresh. I don't ship fresh. It's too much of a, thing. I'm not going to ship fresh flowers to California and then have them not arrive for your wedding. That would just, no. But silk, yes. But locally here in Connecticut, I'm out of Connecticut. I have a studio on about 17 acres of land, and I design and deliver it to venues all over the state of Connecticut, a little bit into New York and Massachusetts, depending on where the border is. So anyway, with that being said, for the fresh flowers. Lily of the Valley, May. In May, you can find them. Simple hand tied. Again, this also lends into the minimalistic, sleek, modern look, but we'll talk about that later. Um, with your classic, I know that hydrangeas are so popular. Be careful with hydrangeas. They're beautiful, but if it is a 100-degree day in July, those hydrangeas, I know we treat them. The a wedding florist, a good wedding florist knows how to treat flowers. But flowers can only stand so much. So be mindful of hydrangea. I try to stay away from it or do a big disclaimer to my brides, or suggest they maybe put some silk in there, because if it's 100 degrees and it's July, those hydrangea are going to collapse on you so fast. If it's, if they're not treated, obviously we treat them properly, but you never know. Things happen even when you treat things. So be careful of hydrangea. I like to, full disclaimers with things with people. I don't think that it's good to, just appease because you're like, oh, I just want a bunch of hydrangea and pray. I really like to be cautious with my brides. So think, okay, soft blush, ivory, champagne, whites, creams. Again, no flower is true. Phalaenopsis orchids, which have been around and timeless for a really long time, they're pretty white. There's some Eskimo roses, pretty white. But like Mondial roses, they're Mondial. It's a variety. They're kind of like an ivory. There's even white roses that are more of a green tone. So and I just used some for an event I just did. They're called cotton. The variety is called cotton, and they're more of a layered rose. They're not quite a true garden rose, but they're considered a standard in the style. But they're cotton, and they actually have a slight hue of pink to them. So there's many different shades of white, and that could be very timeless, very elegant, classic, just bringing in lots of layers of those creams and whites, and pull in more of a, if you have a maybe find that you're like, oh, well, I'm wearing my bridesmaids are wearing taupe or my bridesmaids are wearing peach. There are white roses that will lend themselves to blending more on that tone for your classic and elegant look. Um, I think hand tied, even though hand tied wasn't done 100 years ago or even 50 years ago, I think a hand tied bouquet, if you do it what I call a round mound, it's more of a more set bouquet. That is very classic and very structured, and very pretty and elegant. Or you can take it one step looser and do a round mound but more garden style. These are the things that your wedding florist will pull out of you once they start to unwrap the layers of what you are thinking in your mind. And if you have, it's really good. It's really good if you have your bridal dress, your bridesmaid's dress, even the tux style picked out, because it will help that visual come to life. And when I look at a dress, in my mind, I'm saying, "Ooh, she's wearing a very classic dress," or, "Oh, she's wearing a very modern dress." My mind, the way I would design a bouquet shifts. So these conversations are really important to have with with your flower designer, right? Brides out there, please write this down. Put it in a notepad. Okay, my dress is, I don't know yet. Oh no, don't go to the florist before you have your dress. I really, and your colors of your bridesmaids. I have had brides come to me and say, "Well, I haven't picked out the dresses yet, but I kind of like pink, or I kind of like purple, kind of like taupe." But they did no. It it really does matter. So find the wedding dress, find the bridesmaids' dresses, take pictures. Please take pictures. Um, now, if you came to me and you don't know, you're not sure, that's okay. I can still come up with these bouquets. It's not the same though. in my opinion, I feel like I'm handicapped with that respect of I'm going in a little bit blind. So please open up your flower artists, your wedding florist, open up their mind so they can see what you see in your head. With that being said, so timeless and elegant, white roses, peonies, calla lilies, orchids, maybe some lily of the valley, gardenias. They smell so amazing. They bruise easy too, but they smell amazing. They're going to be a beautiful, luxurious look, but it's going to be, like I said, it's going to have that more structured look to it. But you can say, I'd like a classic, elegant look, but I want it a little bit more wild flower feeling. Okay. Or a little bit less structured. Okay. And your wedding florist can pull that in. It's not hard to do, and it's not hard to go on like one side of the scale, the other, to give yourself a little bit of creative play to your design. Okay. All right. What's next? So, okay, this was so popular last year and it's blending itself into this year too. I have a wedding coming up this fall that has this vibe to it. And not everybody picks this, but last year it was like all over the place. They call it boho chic, okay? Boho chic, it's sort of whimsical in my opinion. It's sort of naturalistic also. It's romantic, yet it's got a lot of movement. And I'm going to talk about it here because um if you are somebody who knows what I'm talking about and you're a bride out there and you're like, "Oh, that's me." Okay. Boho chic, wildflower, dried grasses, pampas grass. You can mix in garden open roses, like David Austin style roses. Uh, Silk and fresh and dried. You could mix them all up into one bouquet. And you're like, what? No. So dried grasses and bunny tails. I don't mean like from a real bunny. I mean like the grass bunny tail. Uh, Bunny tails and pampas grass and ferns, eucalyptus, things like that. That you kind of came into a meadow, you picked a bunch of stuff, made sure it was wispy. It's almost like if a Victorian bouquet had a baby with somebody who was from a meadow and lived on the edge of like nature and druidic. It's like you took a druid and you took Victorian era and a meadow and you spun them in a blender. That's boho chic. I don't know how else to say it. That's what it is. And it's really beautiful. And so, with that being said, what would I do? Depending on the colors, depending on what your girls are wearing, but let's talk standard, straightforward boho chic. You're talking terracotta colors, peach, soft peach, creams, champagnes, maybe pinks. You would go earth tones and neutrals. And so you would either do like all your peaches all the way to creams, or you'll do a bouquet that's all pink all the way to creams, like ombres of pink and whites and creams and ivories, ombres of peach and creams and ivories, with natural colors pulled into that, taupes, things like that. It's earthy usually with those tones pulled in. That doesn't mean you can't do other colors. It's not only a color aesthetic, but it can be a style aesthetic. So if you are wild and free and you want hot purple and hot pink and hot orange, and you'd say you wanted also boho, yes, can a true wedding florist who knows what they're doing pull it off? Absolutely. But it's going to look a little bit different and have a little bit more of a different feeling. However, it's possible. You just have to pull your palette together and talk to your wedding florist. It's sort of loose. The bouquets are going to be looser. They're going to be they're going to be looser. They're going to be sometimes asymmetrical. Um, like if you do floral installations on the floor going up or an arbor, they're going to have pappus grasses, maybe in silk and fresh. not fresh. They're dried. The pampas grass is already dried. They're going to have silk versions of it mixed in. You could have beautiful silk ribbons cascading down, maybe some sheer ribbons cascading down. Mix some different textures of ribbon. The fall, you could do velvet, do some different tones, velvet ribbons with sheer and satin silk. Just mix it all up. And it's really a very almost think of like, if I was wearing flowers in San Francisco, it's like if a hippie were to design a wedding bouquet and make it elegant. That's to me what boho chic really is. That's if I had to sum it up. uh, Back in the day, a hippie was feeling really good, wearing flowers in their hair. They designed a bouquet and they made it elegant. That's all she wrote, folks. Let's move on. Rustic and country. I think of my friend, and I talked about this in Facebook. I think of my friend Alicia and her wedding, and they did. I call it rustic and country, but it really wasn't rustic. Like, it wasn't like oil, grease, and grime. Not that there's anything wrong with oil, grease, and grime, but in the right context. We used flowers from a field. They picked from a cut flower grower. We did sunflowers and all sorts of garden flowers like zinnias, and they were beautiful. And purples and yellows and um it was August. Absolutely a beautiful wedding, all done with garden flowers, but it had a little country flair to it with the sunflowers. I think sunflowers, if you told me you want a country wedding, my mind immediately goes to sunflowers. I just think that they're so happy, but they just feel country to me. And you can make it very beautiful. And actually it's pretty elegant. Like her dress, like I'm thinking back to Alicia's dress. Her dress was very princess like. And um it really had a country flair to the flowers, and that's what she want like, it was gorgeous, and I'm telling you, if you want a country wedding, I would highly recommend you looking at sunflowers, for the bouquets. I would recommend looking at garden flowers like dahlias and zinnias. Depending on the season, you can't always get dahlias and zinnias, really a summer flower, but there are some people that can grow it and ship it out. Maybe using some herbs and some grasses in there too. So wheat, pulling in that wheat. And wheat doesn't have to be only for fall. It can be in summer. And if you have a theme and you're going for it and it's springtime and that's your look, then by all means, please do not think you can't do you. Okay, some people get like, "Oh, well, what will people think?" It's my wedding day. That's you have to remember it's your day. So, take advice from your wedding florist, but also stay true to you. They are the expert, but they're going to help guide you to what makes sense. And at the end of the day, they've been doing it a long time. Like myself, I've been doing it over 35 years and I've seen it all. I've seen pretty much every single style design you could possibly imagine. And I've had brides have some pretty wild ideas. Some of them work, some of them you have to talk them out of. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes they're like, you're just like, you just go with it because it makes sense. That's what they want. They want a bouquet that goes to the floor. You give them a bouquet that goes to the floor. But you always have those. I think you have a conversation with your wedding florist, brides out there that are watching this, you know, listen to them. And if you're like, oh, well, they don't like what I'm thinking, go home and think about it. Look at some pictures online, find some things after you've talked to them and you're like, okay, does this still make sense to me? And so they have your best interest in mind. It's not like, that's not for them. They So when you're hearing things, um like like if you were saying, I want a country wedding, and you tell them that you want all black flowers, it may not make sense. And you're like, well, that's really gothic. Are you sure? So these are the conversations that we're going to have with you. A neat idea for country weddings is, if you're for your tables, you, believe it or not, they have barrels that are like vases. It's really cool. So like a wine barrel or, a keg, type of a thing that's like wooden, that wooden look. You could use that. Mason jars, lanterns look great for a country wedding or a rustic country wedding. You bring in a little bit of that metal element. And I know we're not talking about steampunk tonight. I'm going to do a whole other episode where we're talking about like outside the box flowers. But tonight is really more lending itself to the traditions, okay? More traditional, what we see on a basis. So here's my rundown. Rustic and country, sunflowers, dahlias, zinnias, baby's breath, lavender, maybe some herbs in there, some wild grasses, wheat, and some neat greenery like willow, eucalyptus. I think really because it kind of looks like willow trees. So that's where I would stay to write down in your notes, to talk to your wedding florist, if you want a country wedding. So let's move on to something totally not country, which is modern and minimalistic. So what do I mean? The dresses will help play a role in this. If you are wearing a wedding dress that's very sleek, not lacy, not crazy over the top. Maybe it has some lace, but like it's like a mermaid dress or a fitted straight dress. Um, this is where I think modern and minimalistic work the best. Again, my opinion. Somebody else out there might think otherwise. Um, Black tie affair. Again, not all black tie affair would I say you have to do modern and minimalistic. There's all sorts of variables. However, what would I do if I did minimalistic? Single big flowers, impact flowers, the aesthetic where it's like the flower stands on its own. A bouquet of calla lilies with nothing else with them, tied with a simple a silk ribbon. 3 lilies, big Casablanca lilies, tied with a silk ribbon. Very simple. Maybe those lily of the valley. I know, I talked about them as being before about them being like the timeless elegance. But if you just take those and had them tied with a little bit of ribbon with a modern dress, you're going to get that minimalistic look. So it's almost like you're mixing the two, the like, classic with modernism all in mind. So I wouldn't use a lot of different colors. Be monochromatic, right? All creams, all whites, all burgundy, all dark purples, light purples, whatever color it is. I mean, I tend to think most people, if they were doing modern or minimalistic, they would be doing white. They'd be very classic and white with that. But that doesn't mean you can't do, maybe even a green bouquet, right? Greenish and white. I mean, there's some flowers out there that are really neat that are a little bit of avant-garde, contemporary, maybe carrying a couple stems of orchids, just really unique and simple. Um, my rundown of flower type would probably be, anthuriums, orchids, um, a bouquet of white tulips with nothing else, no greenery, no baby's breath, no filler, just the tulips tied with a beautiful, luxurious silk ribbon. There is a silk ribbon company, and I'm not sponsored by them. I'm not represented by them. They're out of New York. I want to go visit. I would love to see her process. Willow, Silk and Willow, I believe is the name of the company. Their ribbon is spectacular. So pretty. And so that tied around again, I'm not sponsored by any of these people. Like it's just if I see something that I think is beautiful, I'm gonna say it. So 3 anthurium tied with a luxurious ribbon, some, like I said, tulips, simple white tulips, or a color of your choice, but keep it simple and clean. That's what I think. Um, with that. Now, something that's very not minimalistic and not modern, vintage and romantic. Think Bridgerton. Think the richest people in Bridgerton. Okay. If you're like, what is Bridgerton? I have no idea. Shame on you. No. It's a show, Lady Whistledown. I love the show. Absolutely. I watch it for, of course, the theme, but I also watch it for the flowers because if you watch it, there are a lot of flowers in it. And I look at if you watch the show, and I know we're like talking about wedding flowers here, but you can pull ideas from things. Watch the show. See what they're wearing. The different houses, so to speak, have a different color vibe. The one family has soft powdery blues and whites and very, I would say, classic. And then there's another family that's got bright yellow and hot colors, all kind of gaudy. But again, gaudy is in the eye of the beholder. One person's gaudy is another person's love. So, with that being said, vintage to romantic. Okay, it's like you're back in Bridgerton. Think romantic soft pinks and blues and roses and sweet peas and lisianthus and hydrangea with caution. Um, so it's romance colors, ranunculus, peonies if they're in season, just really like big flowers pulled together with ruffles, carnations. I know, I can hear it in my head. Carnations. Okay. I have to have the carnation chat. Folks, a lot of girls will say, I don't want carnations. They're old fashioned. I don't want carnations. They're cheap. Well, uh, please listen to me. There are spectacular, spectacular carnations out there now. They are long lasting. The ruffles have beautiful texture. Some of them smell like clove, but very soft clove, not like scream in your face clove. You can barely smell it. There's so many beautiful colors. Please don't think they're cheap. The newer colors aren't so cheap, but there's so many gorgeous. If you're watching this, my cat, he tends to come in the room whenever I'm doing a recording. It's hilarious. So, the colors and carnations would work so good for a Victorian wedding, in my opinion. And they have these soft, muted pinks and peaches, and oh my gosh, so pretty. So, uh, go watch Bridgerton, see the colors I'm talking about. But romantic colors, I mean, by far, I love the romantic Victorian era. So write it down: roses and sweet peas and hydrangeas and lisianthus. Um, lend yourself to ranunculus, right? You can use lilies. You can definitely use lilies. Uh, oh, stargazer lilies, but I like the really pink, soft star. There, obviously, the variety is a stargazer. It kind of became like Kleenex, like a tissue. Um, there's a soft, I think it's Sarbonne, if I'm remembering correctly. It's a pink lily. It's a soft pink lily, and it's a hybrid, and it's beautiful. There's different types of lilies. There's Asiatic, and then there's hybrid. I love the hybrids. The hybrids are, to me, the most gorgeous by far. But that's just me. Uh, okay, what type of ribbon for this? Let's talk about that for just a minute because it'll pull it in. Lace, silk, shears, sheer ribbon, double face satin. Um, really, you got those muted pastels, you got the pinks, the blues, the creams, the ivories, but it's just ruffly and romantic and beautiful. Right, Mowgli? He says so. Hey, we're doing a podcast here. Thank you. All right. So we're almost done, folks. We're almost done. I'm so glad that you've bared with me this whole time. If you're watching this after the live, thank you. And please send me comments. I want to hear them. I really, it truly enjoy getting to talk to people and get feedback. And if you're somebody who wants flowers that are silk that live out of the state of Connecticut, by all means, I do wedding flowers that are silk flowers. That is part of my jam. Like I said, I've been doing this 35 years, and this is part of my world. I have a 5-star Google review, and I love what I do. So reach out. So Q&A. Here's the deal. Think seasonally, have questions about what flowers to get in a season, send me a message. I'll tell you. Budget. Your budget is really dependent upon you and what in your mind you can afford. However, make a recipe, make a list of your wish list, give it to the wedding florist. They're going to tell you if it's doable or not for the amount of money. And if it's not doable, they'll tell you what they can do. And trust your florist. At the end of the day, wherever you live in the country or around the world, if you're watching this from afar, they have been doing this. This is their world. That's all they do. They have a niche. That's what their world is, right? They know their stuff. Communicate the vision and get it through to them because it's going to help so much. If you have questions before we wrap it up, I just wanted to say, you know, whatever your wedding theme is, if you want to send me a DM and get my suggestion, I'll give you a quick suggestion. If you want a formal Zoom, I can set up formal Zooms. They're done through my website. And if you book with us, the Zoom is, of course, the cost of my Zoom is free. The Zoom includes a portfolio and the portfolio, but it also then will get credited to your flowers. So with that being said, don't forget, I'm going to be going live multiple times during the month. So Sunday nights, you will find me here around 7:30. And from then on, we're going to do more flowers after hours. This segment's all on weddings. There's going to be other ones where I talk about other things, but we're talking about weddings for a while now. So with that, thank you. And for now, I'm going to sign off, and I hope you have a fabulous evening, everybody. Bye for now.